Well, good afternoon. I'll right away go here into presentation mode. And what I want to show to you is the background in front of which I teach, but also work with clients. So we all work right now with an elephant in the room, and I want to show you the size of that elephant because it is a dramatic situation. Worldwide, we would need 60 million individual crop, pest, product, country combinations to be authorized if we would want to be able to distribute food worldwide without non-tariff trade barriers based on different plant protection products. The number 60 million comes from the fact that worldwide we grow 10,000 different crops. For each crop, I estimated at least 10 pests, where growers will now shoot me because there's way more than 10. To conduct IPM, to prevent resistance development, you need to have at least 3 different mode of actions, so 3 different products per crop pest combination. And then we have 200 countries doing the same regulatory work. And that's dramatic. Therefore, this is the situation, the way regulators feel already since the late 80s, early 90s, and in some countries it's worse. They are hardly above water anymore. The workload is too big. And I know for sure that many companies feel the same way, and so do growers with international markets. The problem in terms of approval is that when you prepare your data package, you basically need a data package for your active substance, then for your formulants, and then for the product itself. If you just look at North America, there would be 3 sets of packages. South America is already way more complex. Europe is quite bad, worse. Asia, nobody really has a sign of what we are at right now. But the worst place in the world is really Africa. So this amount of work we cannot achieve. Companies cannot, regulators cannot, and growers cannot either. So we need to change the way we're doing things. And what we are saying is we need to generate for each active ingredient or formulant and final formulated product one single data package for the world. And that is what we are trying to achieve with our courses. And we can only achieve it through global cooperation. Across political borders, so we pretend the world had no political borders. And we are getting growers, industry, and governments to work together. Gerke and I, we have been doing this now for 15, 16 years. We know it works. And that's what I'm trying to convey to you in this short webinar. Worldwide, we have in all 14 regions where countries try to work together. The simplest region, I think, is North America, because you only have 3 countries, and at least 2 of them speak the same language, so that's good. Other areas in the world have way bigger challenges. And because of that, they have started to work together under OECD, and you might be aware of it, to develop the tools they need to work together. All pieces nowadays are in place. What we suggest is that you go and connect them and build business along the way, which means way before your product is approved and ready to be produced and marketed. How do you do that? Here you have the different stepping stones, that's the way we call it. To get from the upper left corner to the lower right corner, you have in all 13 stepping stones, 3 for each group. So the first 3 stepping stones apply to the growers, processors, and traders. The next 5 stepping stones apply to companies, and the last 5 to the regulators. And now I will just quickly show you these 13 stepping stones, which are the content of the course. The first thing, and one step back. First thing, the Global Plant Protection Database. Currently, it is not easy to find out which products are approved for which crop pest combination in which country, by which company. You don't know how long the product is already approved. You don't know what the use pattern is. It's difficult to find out. However, there is the Global Plant Protection Database where you can look all this information up. So within a few seconds, you can create an Excel sheet of, I don't know, 100, 200, 300,000 lines with the information you need to have to develop a plan of where your product might fit. However, this is really the work the growers should be doing so that they can identify, okay, other growers in the world have this, I don't have this, therefore I cannot ship my product or I am not competitive. When they have identified what their needs are based on having to control a pest and having to get a product approved before they can use it, there is a global needs database, currently active, it exists. This is the database the way we want to see it activated. That is not yet live, but what exists is the information is gathered on the Imme website in an Excel sheet. So there you can see what currently growers from around the world have identified. It's only, I think, just 3,000 projects long. In reality, I think it would be way longer, but there are not a lot of growers who know about it yet. So that is also something we're working on. Once the growers have identified what their problems are and have communicated it to you and to the regulators, the growers can also go and ask for support from government, saying, okay, we need this approval, data need to be generated, here's what we want you to do. And this kind of meeting, the first actual global meeting, happened last year in January, was organized by the IR4, the USDA project. They do it like this for 40 years. And Canada does it like this for 13 years. The way it works is you have online such a sheet where you can enter the needs that you as a grower have, plant protection needs that you have. They go into this spreadsheet, which I just showed you the location of, on the Imme database. And then people come together for 3 days, and they choose something like 100 to 200 individual projects off this list of 3,000 that then the government takes charge of. For the other 2,900, many of them still sit on that list. Nobody knows how to address them. They just sit there until next year. But a lot of them also have been picked up in joint ventures between growers and industry, or growers and regulators, or regulators and industry. So all kinds of combination, cooperation across political borders. So now their part is done. The grower part is done. They go and do what they do, grow a crop. Now you come to work. First thing is the pre-submission consultation. You ask the regulators what you need in form of, or need to provide to them in form of information for you to get an approval of the use of your product in a country. What we are saying is, instead of asking the regulator for a meeting, do an electronic consultation. And for that we have developed the documents. And then while you do that, go global. Don't wait. Don't deal with one country. Go global. So what we're doing is we are picking from every region of the 14 regions I showed you earlier in the world. We pick one country, send them this information, and ask them to talk with their neighboring countries about data requirements. And in the course, we show you how to do that. What the regulators then do is they go to the data requirements that they have jointly developed under OECD, and they look up which data requirements, which list, generic list, applies to your product and its uses, and then refine the information to give you some more guidance on how to provide the data, where it should come from, and things like that. Then the information you get is typically something like 30 or 40 pages long, lots of legal explanation that as a scientist you don't need, and you also don't need if you manage the work of scientists. So we show you how to simplify the information, change it into a list with several columns, because this is what we now call your song sheet. So that's the next stepping stone for industry. This song sheet you need to have to coordinate the work of everybody who contributes to your one single global data package. So you're using the list. And now first thing you have to do is to identify what kind of information you provide. So what I mean with what kind is you can provide new studies. That is the way it was done in the past. There was not a lot of information. Chemical compounds typically were completely new. But then with the biologicals coming to market, the picture changed. Because nowadays, we also, yes, still have to submit some new studies, but a lot of the information comes from published literature. You can use scientific rationales, or you can also use monographs, which are the review documents of regulators somewhere in the world. Now, you see those four colors. You need to identify on your list how you are going to address which of the data requirements. And then you need the people who are going to do the job. In this picture, what I'm trying to say here is that in the center, you have your orchestra, that's you, and all the people you're working with. And the audience are the regulators around the world who all together stare at you and will jointly decide if they agree with your statements or not. Important in that is that everybody who participates in your task force needs to know how to play their own instrument and need to know the tune they have to play. So you are, maybe if you are, the person down there, the conductor, who is now getting everybody to play in concert, and the result of it will be your data package, your unique global data package. How do you build that together? Well, first you need to have study protocols for everything that needs to be generated. These protocols you can find on the OECD website, and you hand it out to the scientists whom you have made responsible for these different studies, and they can be anywhere in the world. Some part of the data package will be modeling, for risk assessment mainly. There, OECD also has spoken. They don't have an online tool yet, but they have this document where you can look up which models are acceptable to OECD countries and observer countries. And then in the end, you need them to provide the information to you in a format, in a document that is not just acceptable to you, but that is acceptable to the regulators. So here are the other tools. You can download the documents from the OECD website and provide them to the individual people participating in your task force. During the course, we will show you how to do that, and we will be discussing the different items in these requirements. Next step, you need to submit your data package. You now have all the pieces. You need to have a software where you can create a zip folder with all your documents, and then in the end push on send so that the regulator has it. What we can look at together is the Canadian e-index builder. There are some other softwares, but the others are just not as good as that one. I do not know why. Maybe it's the most recent. I don't know, but that one works very well. OECD has already spoken and kind of elaborated a table of which softwares are out there, but for now we are using in our courses and also in our work the e-index builder that Canada has developed. So then we end your check. So once you have logged everything into your zip folder, it creates for you a table of content, and we ask that you compare that to your song sheet to make sure each and every document that is asked for actually is in your zip folder. We have seen files, they were stuck with the regulators for months just because there was one document missing, and that is absolutely a waste of everybody's time. So now you're done, you push on send, you open a bottle of champagne, and the regulator goes to work. They first do a scientific evaluation, for which, again, they have developed OECD guidance documents. It's not only guidance, it's template documents. Would always encourage companies to ask of the regulators that they use these templates, because only if they do, they really become interchangeable between countries. Next step is the risk assessment. There is a process to it that also the governments, the regulators have developed together under OECD. And when it comes to taking decisions, what is acceptable, what is not, there OECD does not have a document yet. For that, we will be looking at the uniform principles in the EU and see how they apply to other parts of the world. We're using this because it's simply the newest right now in the field. But you can see here, for example, there's an OECD document on environmental safety. OECD is beginning to build up on that as well. Then comes risk mitigation. So if the regulators have found a risk that they find to be unacceptable, it needs to be mitigated, because most likely you don't want to withdraw your application for approval. We will be looking at how this risk mitigation is done, what your options are, and what the regulator will do. Then comes a regulatory decision, where you often as a company still have a time to step in and say, okay, you know, we see it a little bit different. So again, there to discuss these, we go back to the uniform principles, and we can look at specific cases during the course. And then comes in the end the national label legalization. As you know, there are very many different types of labels, even just, you know, for you as a company, you have a manufacturing label, you have a product label, most likely a label for each and every country. You might want to expand your label. With the generic products coming on the market, you have very similar labels. There is a project on the go to develop a NAFTA label. It's ongoing for, well, close to 20 years. There is no NAFTA label yet, but we can always continue hoping. I would like to see an EU label, but I'm not holding my breath, but it would be great. But maybe we should just drop NAFTA and EU and aim right away at an OECD label. Since we have QRs, that would be technically possible as well. So when your label is approved, you get it back from the regulator, they send it to you, and now it's back over to you, and you start producing and distributing. Has this all worked? Yes. Each and every one of these steps have worked. What has not worked yet is anybody taking the whole path from upper left to lower right, meaning from grower to industry to regulator over to the grower worldwide. No. But with every company knowing how to do it and the regulators knowing how to do it, I still hope to see it going through at least for one product and its uses. And these last 4 slides are just some examples of those steps where in fact we have achieved what we are saying should be done. And these are examples we can discuss during the course as well, just to really, you know, get the real life in there. Get out of the theory and really make it happen. And with that, I'm coming to the end. What I'm saying is we know where we are going. We need to have one global data package. All the stepping stones are in place. And now I ask you, let's go.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so I put it to everyone, and if anyone has any questions, to type them in the chat. It's someone said here. You said for step 4, pre-submission consultation, ask the country to speak to their neighbours. Thereby,
Yeah.
you mean the CA in the countries.
Yes. Not if so. If for every region, every of the 14 regions, you pick one country and you ask that country to talk to their neighbors, they can do that without you having representation in that other country. Because the governments are allowed to talk with each other if you give them permission to do so.
And then on top of that, the same person's asked, as mentioned, it seems like the CAs are already drowning, so I do not really see the possibility that they will ask their neighbours for extra work. What's your view on that, Imme?
The regulators worldwide do know that this early slide I showed you there with the drowning ships, they know their reality. That's the way it is. So the regulators right now have two types of activities. They have the process that they have to follow and which they know they can't fulfill the job on, and they have a path of where they're improving their processes, of where they're trying out new ways. All their OECD activities are that. So on that path, they are talking with each other all the time. The point is just that you would want them to talk about your product, and that is what can happen. The point there is that if you, for example, look at the EU, you now have countries like Portugal that only has 40 people left in the office of the regulator. Even a country like Canada with over 300 cannot fulfill its mandate. So Portugal with 40 people definitely can't. And they are picking up the smaller steps, like conducting a pre-submission consultation, to be part of the picture, well knowing that in the full review in the end, they cannot take a big bite.
Thank you, Imme. There's another question here as well. Is the access to the databases recommended free?
No, it's not. But that's, again, a little bit a relative answer. All the multinational companies are subscribed to this database, so they use it. And every employee of their company can use it. So sometimes people help each other out. Then in Egypt, the UN pays for 50 users. And in Canada, for many years, the Canadian government paid access for all Canadians for almost 10 years. Right now, they're asking the individuals to pay in the access to the database, but the overall goal is to make this database globally available to everybody. So there are people who are trying to move it in that direction. But right now, and we can look at that database together during the course and also look at what it would cost depending on what information from it you want to buy.
Thank you, Imme. There's another one here as well. We are a startup company and at the moment on research phase of innovative biopesticides. How early should we establish a department dedicated to regulatory?
As soon as you have the idea of a compound that eventually might end up in the product. The regulators most likely have already a sense of what this active ingredient will challenge them to look at once you are going to submit it to them. So they are willing to talk with you early on and give you advice, which is very helpful, especially for a young company, because you do need to look to be very efficient with your resources. And so having the regulator by your side advising you on this might work and that might work is really very helpful. The question is, how do you engage the regulator for that to happen? And again, that's a topic that would be discussed during the course if you wish to.
Thanks, Imme. And then I've got a final question here. Do you consider differences of MRL depending on the geography?
Depending on?
On the geography, location.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes. Yes, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people know that there is a global project going on to achieve global harmonization of MRLs because of all the non-tariff trade barriers. And yeah, there are some results to that, and people can feed into those developments, and how that can be done, again, will be discussed during the course.
Thank you, Imme. I'll just give it a minute, see if anyone else is typing a question. See if there are any more.
Maybe something interesting as well, while people might be thinking about questions, is in several of these courses, the discussions became quite specific to certain products, and we were strategizing on who would become part of the task force in which part of the world, and what would motivate people to be part of this task force. There is a lot going on, and once people start discussing and we bring in our experience, then people go typically back with a very precise to-do list on how to find the people for their task force.
Thank you, Imme. There doesn't seem to be any more, just thank yous. So I think what we'll do is we'll wrap that up there and finish it there. So thank you everyone for attending, and thank you very much, Imme, for presenting for us and for everyone today.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much.